Hey Dave, thank you so much for your message. I wanted to send you a little bit of a video because I thought that would be a little bit more helpful for you given your questions. I hope you don't mind me doing that. But before I jump into that, I just wanted to say a big thank you for reaching out, for asking me for a little bit of advice, for engaging with the question, which is always really nice, and also for looking out for me as well. It has been a really busy couple of weeks and I'm starting to feel it now. So if I'm looking a little bit tired, I do apologise, but I'm trying to put all my energy into this for you, so let's jump into it. I'm just going to minimise myself a little bit here. Excuse my rudimentary screen recording. So you were asking me about my experience with the Osprey Daylite Plus, and then also as compared to the Stratos or the Cirrus, which is the women's version. Obviously I'm sure you'll probably be after the Stratos. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So I probably should preface all of what I'm about to say by, of course, mentioning that I don't own a Stratos or a Cirrus, and I haven't actually tried one out on the trail myself. However, a couple of years ago, actually probably not even a couple of years ago, probably about a year ago, I was looking at possibly getting a new backpack. And I was so happy with the way that my current Osprey has performed that I was looking at just getting another Osprey backpack, but perhaps one that would be a little bit more versatile for not just day hiking, but also just for maybe even an overnight trip if I could wrangle my gear down enough. And I'd seen these packs, the Stratos and the Cirrus, on the shelf in the local shop, and I actually was reasonably impressed with the way that they looked, and just on my cursory over glance of it, thought that it actually would be quite a good option. So they are packs that I'm reasonably familiar with, even though I haven't actually used one or had the chance to try one out for myself. That also being said, I think it is worth mentioning as well that I've had my Osprey Daylite Plus now since 2017, and I have used it extensively over that time. So I am definitely coming at this much more from the perspective that I've got way more experience with that pack, obviously. But then the reason why I've had it since 2017 is because it does everything that I need it to do, and it does it really well. So now that I've kind of made those little comments, I think maybe let's just jump into the two different packs themselves and what kind of the comparison would be between the two of them. So certainly in terms of the way that the pack actually carries, it's going to come down a lot to what you need it to do. So I'd encourage you to really think about what kind of gear you're going to be carrying and what kind of usage that you're actually going to need from the pack itself. If you're going to be carrying lots of heavy gear, or even if you're just going to be carrying a lot of gear which altogether is going to work out to be quite heavy, then you might really find that something like the Stratos would be very beneficial for you. And I say that because my experience with the Daylite Plus has been that it's fantastic if you're carrying loads of perhaps even up to as much as 10 kilos. I don't know that I've ever probably had 10 kilos in that pack, but certainly getting up towards that, and it does become a little bit more uncomfortable the heavier that you, the more that you put heavy weight into the pack, and primarily that's because of course it doesn't have a proper harness system. So the Daylite Plus just has a back mesh panel, and then it also has a very thin sort of, I don't know what it would be, 15-20 centimetre, 1.5 to 2 centimetre wide belt strap that really doesn't do an awful lot to distribute any of the weight in the pack down to your hips to make it feel a little bit more comfortable when you're hiking with it. So I've actually got the pack here with me at the moment, and I thought it might be helpful to have it with me whilst I was having this little chat to you, because obviously this is a little bit different to the Daylite Pluses that you can actually buy in the shops now. This is sort of like one or two iterations prior to what you can actually get now, so it does look a little bit different. You no longer have the front mesh panel that's accessible from the side there, it's now accessible from the top, Also, mine does not have the sort of really long mesh panels on the side for storage of drink bottles. It's just got very short ones. And if you remember watching my video that reviewed this a little while ago, my most recent review video of this pack, that does become a bit of a problem, especially if you're using like the standard pump style water bottles, which are actually quite fat. If you've got a long skinny bottle, not so bad, but definitely any bottle that is a bit fatter, you just don't have enough room in there for it to stay put and secure whilst you're actually hiking. So I think that that's something that they kind of have addressed, because that was a big problem that I think a lot of people actually complained about, and so now those side panels are up a little bit higher, and so the chances of your water bottle falling out are reasonably slim. So yeah, I'm jumping around a little bit all over the place. Sorry, let's just adjust this a bit so you can see it a bit more. So obviously with the Daylite Plus, you just have this foam back panel, which is like a closed cell foam with a little bit of ventilation in there. It's covered in a mesh fabric, so it gives your back a little bit of airflow, but obviously nowhere near as much as you would get in the Stratos. And also, it's not a full frame pack, right? It's actually designed to be a travel pack. That's where it came from. And so a lot of the reviews that you'll see online for this pack are actually from people in the travel related niche, who are just using it as a way to transport gear around during the day whilst they're out traveling and sightseeing and doing bits and pieces like that. I don't think there's an awful lot of people in the hiking space who actually use this as a day pack for hiking. And I suppose that's probably partly because of the fact that this harness system is not a typical harness system for a hiking pack, and it's also possibly because you don't get your hip belt pockets and things on this pack as you do in some other hiking packs. That's a reasonably common feature to have in a hiking pack, and obviously this one doesn't have it. But then having said that, it does have a lot of features that you would expect to see in a hiking pack. Like, for example, you've got a water bladder pouch. Now my one on my model is actually on the back of the pack, so it's kind of sits in front of that that back mesh panel. I think the current Daylites though, they actually have the panel on the inside. In my pack on the inside I just have this little laptop sleeve, which to be honest is where I usually end up storing my water if I'm carrying it in a bladder anyway, but I've now gotten rid of all my water bladders and I just tend to use bottles instead, so now I'll just chuck a bottle down on the inside and those little pouches don't get used unless I'm carrying my laptop backwards and forwards to work so that I can work on my blog posts. Durability wise, I cannot complain about this at all. Like I said, I've used this pretty consistently since 2017 and it is showing very little sign of wear and tear. There's a few, like, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's a few little scuff marks and things on the front. I have noticed over the last 6 to 8 months, and it's probably just because I've been in different conditions and it's actually just been very obvious to me, but it's starting to fade now from the UV, especially around the top of the pack. And I have just recently noticed, like, because of that as well, I don't know if I can show you, but on the inside there I'm just getting a little bit of fading and a bit of deterioration around the top there, and I think that again, looking at it, is probably mostly to do with the fact that there's a bit of sun damage. Could also just be dirt. I haven't tried sponging that out, so it's very possible that it's just mud or something like that. In terms of capacity and space inside, I have never run into an issue with not having enough space inside, so I can very easily and comfortably fit the 10 essentials inside this backpack. So I'm usually always carrying like a first aid kit, and then I'm carrying like another waterproof pouch full of all the other bits and pieces that you need to have, like a fire starter or a lighter or something like that. I usually always carry my stove with me. I'll usually have a water filter. I'll usually have, gosh, what else do I normally have? Just my little essential bag. It's got everything in it that I need. Like I said, first aid kit, and little bits and pieces like that. It's gone off the top of my head now, but so there's plenty of room to have that, and I kind of stow those things right in the bottom, and then I'll just kind of pile up my layers. I can fit like a fleece and also rain pants and also my rain jacket in here if it's all, you know, stacked properly and rolled up nice and tightly. The good thing that I like is that it's quite expandable this way, like out that way. So, and I've got these straps right on there, smallest at the moment. If you pull these all the way out to the furthest that they will go on this pack, you've got so much room in it. I know it doesn't look a lot in that video, but trust me, it's like actually a lot of room and a lot of space. Which means that once it's all fully expanded, like you can fit quite a fair bit of stuff in there. Like I said, the only real drawback with that is just the weight that you might be able to carry with it. The thing that I like about the new version of the pack, I kind of touched on this at the start, over this one, is that instead of having the zip this way around, you've then got a zip this way around, because I do find that that zip can be problematic once you've got it open, especially if you're walking along. Even though this is really easy to get to if you just need to sling it off one shoulder and reach around to grab something, it's also really easy for things to fall out, and I do find myself getting a little bit nervous when I'm walking that I'm going to lose things out of there, because I tend to store like small things like chapstick and rescue remedy spray and all that kind of stuff in there, and that's just the easy stuff that you're going to lose really quickly. And then I do really like the fact that I've got this little front storage pouch there, which again, it's really easy to store like your rain jacket and things in there too. Look, I mean, I've gone into way too much detail about it. You know the pack probably anyway, but I love it. I would not have or could not have asked for a better pack to start hiking with. I think it's been not too complicated for a complete beginner to start with, but also has so many features that you kind of don't even realize that you need to have until you're out there. Having said all of that, the Stratos would probably be my next choice after that if I was going to go with an Osprey pack. An Osprey is kind of overwhelming, right? They have so many different kinds of hiking packs. It can be really hard to choose or decide which one that you actually want to go with. The Daylite Plus has been fantastic for me because I haven't just needed to use it for hiking and tramping. I've also needed to just use it in general everyday life. But if you are just looking for a pack, like a day pack to go hiking with and not to do anything else with, I don't think I would recommend the Osprey Daylite to you. I think I would probably recommend that you did go with something like the Stratos, because the Stratos is purpose built for hiking and tramping. So that whole harness system that they use, and again I've popped up the image here on the screen, but this harness system is built specifically for, look, we've lost me now, built specifically for hiking and tramping. The anti-gravity system, which Osprey has in a lot of their packs, is kind of built into this pack as well. You know how much I love my arc haul. It's the same kind of concept. You end up with a whole bunch of ventilation space through the back of the pack, so that you've got heaps of airflow around your back. You're still going to sweat. It's still going to get hot and sticky around there, let's be honest. But aside from the ventilation that it provides, I also find that having that arc system actually in the pack itself, some way, somehow, by some miracle of nature and physics, does actually really help to distribute the weight really, really well down to your hips. And of course, on this hiking pack, you also do have a proper harness system with a proper hip belt that you can actually distribute quite a bit of weight down onto it. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cold as well, so let's just scroll through. I don't know how much you would want to use things like the stow loops and things for your trekking poles. It's also got an ice axe loop on the front as well. But the next biggest thing, and probably the only concern that I would actually have about using the Stratos in any Osprey pack actually, is with the hip belt pockets. Now, I don't know if you've actually seen one of these packs in person or had a little bit of a play around with it. I've also looked at the Talon packs, and the issue that I have with them is that the hip belt pockets are, in my opinion, pretty useless. There's really no space in them, apart from maybe storing like a chapstick and a muesli bar, and that's probably about it. I've got a reasonably large sized phone, you know, it's I don't even know, what's that, like the length of my hand, my wrist maybe. I don't think I would fit it in one of these. It's just too long, especially when you consider that the hip belt pocket is actually going to be contoured as well to you. So I think that that would be a bit of a problem for me. I don't like to have extra pockets unless they're actually going to be useful. It's the reason why I even ended up taking off the hip belt pockets on my Z-Packs Arc haul, because I just found that I wasn't really using them for what I needed to use them for anyway, and I much preferred just having like my little bum bag instead to store things that I needed to get to during the day. So to me, I don't think that they really provide that much of an advantage, but that's probably my own personal hiking style, and they might be something that you really enjoy. As for the rest of it, again, the next thing that has kind of cropped up that I have thought about with this pack is the size of it. So 24 litres is obviously only 4 litres bigger than my Daylite Plus, and yet this pack just looks huge. And when you're actually, I mean, again, let's kind of bring up this picture here because it shows you a little bit better. Like, to me, it just looks massive. And like, considering that this guy's a guy, obviously, and I'm a girl, it just seems like it is very, very big for its 24 litres. Now, I think that is probably down to the fact that with the Daylite Plus, again, potentially you're coming out a little bit further with the full capacity of the pack, whereas this is sort of distributed vertically up and down. Now, of course, that's going to be a lot better for you in terms of the weight carrying properly, because the more that the weight is left closer to your back instead of sort of way out here, the better it's going to feel and the more comfortable that it's going to be. So in that sense, it makes perfect sense. But it also does just look like a really huge pack. I mean, you know, like, it's just, that picture there in particular is crazy, considering that it's only a 24 litre size. But again, that might not be something that bothers you. 24 litres will definitely be enough for you to carry everything that you need to carry on a day hike. I would suggest you'd possibly, if you were really, really careful about it and you weren't carrying things like a sleeping mat and an emergency shelter, you'd probably even get away with using this on an overnight trip if you were really careful about it and you were staying in huts. Certainly an overnight trip in summer. So there you go, there's something to consider there anyway. And then of course the only other thing is the price. So there is obviously a price difference between the two of them. The Daylite Plus being what it is, not actually being a specific hiking pack, is quite a bit cheaper than the Stratos. But I think, you know, for what you're getting, it's probably worth it. It's probably worth spending the little bit of extra money. You're basically getting the exact same functionality. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, the side mesh pockets for your water bottles and things on the Stratos are infinitely better than the side mesh pockets on the Daylite Plus. Even the new version of the Daylite Plus, they will basically just about encompass, I mean, like, that's a 1.5 litre pump bottle. I should think this side pockets on the Stratos probably will come up to about here on that bottle. So there's no way that's going anywhere, which means that you've got plenty of capacity to carry water. You've got the extra functionality like your ice axe loops and your trekking pole loops. You've still got a front pocket that you can unzip. You've got plenty of different compartments that you can use. You've got the same type of access to the pack in the Stratos 24 as you do in the Daylite Plus, namely, you know, like a system that you unzip from the top and then you open out like that. You've got your hip belts if you want them. You've also got a proper harness system, and I think that definitely that harness system has got to be worth it for what it does. And then you've also just got a really good Osprey pack. They're durable, they're well known, they do what they do very well. So really, I don't think you can go wrong with either. Have a little think about what you actually need it to do, how much weight that you need to carry, what kind of trails that you're going to need to take it on, and then go from there. But I certainly don't think that you can really go wrong with either. Sorry that rambled on for a really long time, but I hope that did help. If you've got any more follow-up questions, please do go ahead and let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Alright Dave, take care. Bye.